Welcome to the channel and thank you for choosing to watch this video. My name is Jonathan and I work in the offshore global business industry. In this short but detailed video, we will explore the Financial Action Task Force, or the FATF, by going over its historical background as to when, how, and why it came into existence, its methodology, trends, and approach regarding global anti-money laundering, countering terrorism financing, and counter-proliferation financing frameworks, it setting global and international standards regarding the aforementioned, and finally, it assessing, monitoring, and identifying jurisdictions having AML, CFT, CFP deficiencies regarding compliance with the standards it has set. The Financial Action Task Force, also known by its French name as the Groupe d'Action Financière, or GAFI, is an intergovernmental organization established in 1989 during a G7 summit to combat the growing problem of money laundering. Its primary objective is to formulate policies and measures to combat the illicit gains and proceeds of crimes globally and safeguard specific interests. In 2001, the FATF's mandate was broadened and expanded to encompass the prevention of terrorism following the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001 in the United States. The FATF was established with the mandate to examine trends in money laundering, track legislative, financial, and law enforcement actions at national and international levels, assess compliance, and provide recommendations and standards to combat money laundering effectively. Initially comprising 16 member states, the FATF has since grown to 39 member countries, as well as 2 regional organizations, being the European Commission and the Gulf Cooperation Council, as of the date of creation of this video. The FATF recognizes that the methods employed to launder illicit proceeds and finance illegal activities are continuously and constantly evolving. As the international financial sector adopts and implements FATF standards, criminals seek out alternative avenues to launder their illicit gains and funds. To address this challenge, the FATF conducts thorough research into the evolving methods and trends of money laundering and terrorist financing. The aim is to support countries in comprehensively identifying, assessing, and understanding the risks associated with these illicit activities. By gaining a thorough understanding of these risks, countries can then implement more effective measures to mitigate them and combat money laundering and terrorist financing more efficiently. Some of the key methodologies, trends, and approaches employed by the FATF in its continuous efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing include the following. Study and analysis. The FATF conducts extensive research and analysis on emerging trends and techniques employed in money laundering and terrorist financing. This includes studying evolving techniques, methodologies, technologies, and typologies used by criminals to move illicit funds. Monitoring. The FATF actively monitors legislative, financial, and law enforcement actions taken by its member countries at both national and international levels. It assesses the implementation of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures to ensure compliance with its standards, which will all be covered in future videos on this channel. Reporting. The FATF issues reports on the compliance of member countries with its recommendations and standards. These reports assess the effectiveness of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing systems in place and highlight areas for improvement. Recommendations and standards. The FATF issues comprehensive recommendations and standards that provide guidance to member countries on establishing robust anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing frameworks. These recommendations cover a wide range of areas, including customer due diligence, suspicious transaction reporting, international cooperation, and the regulation of virtual assets. Mutual evaluations. The FATF conducts mutual evaluations of member countries' anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regimes. These evaluations assess the effectiveness of national systems and compliance with FATF standards by providing valuable feedback and recommendations to help countries strengthen their frameworks. And finally, global network. The FATF operates as a global network, collaborating with its member countries, regional bodies, and other international organizations. It encourages information sharing, cooperation, and capacity building initiatives to foster a unified global approach in combating money laundering and terrorist financing. By employing these methods and closely monitoring trends, the FATF aims to stay abreast of evolving threats and enhance international efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing effectively. As per its website, the Financial Action Task Force is, quote, the global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog, setting international standards that aim to prevent these illegal activities and the harm they cause to society. In its inaugural year, the FATF published a report presenting 40 recommendations aimed at enhancing the fight against money laundering. Over time, these standards have been frequently and regularly updated to adapt to changing patterns and methodologies employed in money laundering and terrorist financing activities. The 40 recommendations on money laundering, along with the special recommendations on terrorist financing, now expanded to 9, collectively establish the global benchmark for implementing effective measures against money laundering and the prevention of financing terrorism and terrorist acts. These recommendations serve as the international standard, providing guidance and best practices to governments, financial institutions, and other stakeholders to combat these illicit activities. By adhering to these recommendations, countries can enhance their anti-money laundering frameworks and strengthen their efforts to counter the financing of terrorism, thereby contributing to global security and stability. Recognizing the evolving nature of risks, the FATF consistently enhances its global standards to address emerging threats. For instance, it focuses on regulating virtual assets as cryptocurrencies gain popularity and pose new challenges in terms of money laundering and terrorist financing. By adapting to these changing landscapes, the FATF strives to ensure the effectiveness of its standards in combating illicit activities and maintaining the integrity of the global financial system. The FATF plays an active role in monitoring countries to ensure the full and effective implementation of the FATF standards. Over 200 countries and jurisdictions have committed to implementing these standards, and their compliance is assessed through the collaboration of 9 FATF-associated member organizations and other global partners, including the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. This monitoring mechanism helps promote consistent adherence to the FATF standards, fostering global cooperation and strengthening the global framework for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. In February 2004, with an update in February 2009, the FATF released a reference document called the Methodology for Assessing Compliance with the FATF 40 Recommendations and the FATF 9 Special Recommendation. This document serves as a comprehensive guide for evaluating a country's adherence to the FATF standards. The accompanying 2009 Handbook for Countries and Assessors outlines the criteria used to assess whether participating countries have achieved these standards. The evaluation process conducted by the FATF involves 2 main components. Firstly, there is a technical compliance assessment, which focuses on examining the legal and institutional framework in place, as well as the powers and procedures of the competent authorities within the country being assessed. Secondly, an effectiveness assessment is conducted to evaluate the degree to which the legal and institutional framework is producing the expected results in terms of countering money laundering and terrorist financing. By employing this assessment methodology, the FATF evaluates a country's performance against the FATF standards, taking into account both the technical compliance and the effectiveness of their anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing measures. This process ensures a comprehensive evaluation of a country's efforts and progress in meeting the FATF's requirement. The FATF exercises accountability over countries that fail to comply with the FATF standards. If a country consistently falls short in implementing these standards, it may be designated as a jurisdiction under increased monitoring or a high-risk jurisdiction by the FATF. These designations are commonly known as the gray and black lists externally. Such categorizations signal the need for enhanced security, scrutiny, and monitoring of the country's anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing efforts. In conclusion, I hope this video leaves you with a good understanding of the pivotal role the FATF plays in combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. As was elaborated in this video, its primary objectives include setting international standards, assessing compliance of its member states, promoting implementation, enhancing global cooperation, and identifying emerging risks. By fulfilling these roles and objectives, the FATF aims to safeguard the integrity of the global financial system, protect it from criminal abuse, and contribute to international security and stability. Thank you for watching this video until the end. This is once again truly appreciated by me. As always, if you found the content of this video informative, feel free to subscribe to the channel and set yourself the notification bell to not miss out on frequent and insightful content. I'll see you in the next one, guys. Cheers.